were looking for. At that point, Detective Williams drew down on the suspect. The suspect proned out. He told him to get on the ground. He got on the ground immediately, proned himself out. Other detectives came and assisted, put him into custody, and put him in cuffs. At that point, detectives went and cut off. He had a backpack on. The description that we had received was a maroon shirt, dark jeans, and a backpack, which is exactly what he had on. He had a maroon shirt, dark jeans, and a backpack. Once he was in custody, the detectives went, cut off the backpack off of him because he was in cuffs. When they looked into the backpack, they saw a silver Kimber semi-automatic weapon with .45 caliber ammunition, a flashlight, and a holster on his person. During the search incident to arrest, they looked in his back pocket, and in his back pocket he had a wallet, and in that wallet he had a Colorado ID that had his information on there, and which is how we were able to identify him.
Three victims were killed immediately at the restaurant and in the restaurant parking lot. As stated before, the fourth victim, Keila De Silva, died about 2 hours later at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Numerous other victims were injured from the windows in the restaurant that were shattered by gunfire. 2 other victims were injured by gunfire, including James Shaw, who was injured by a bullet graze before he selflessly fought off the shooter. DeEbony Groves was 21 years old and was killed inside the restaurant. DeEbony was a senior at Belmont University, and she had what her friends and family called a, quote, $1 million smile. She was studying to be a social worker, something she was incredibly passionate about. She was also devoted to advocating for equality and fighting for equal rights for all. DeEbony had one brother, one stepsister, and 2 stepbrothers. She was very devoted to her faith and even sang Jesus Loves Me as she died. On that night, DeEbony was out on the town with her sorority sisters before they decided to go to the Waffle House. She attended Gallatin High School and was an excellent student who always studied hard. While in high school, she played basketball and was a very good player. Though she didn't play basketball in college, she will always be remembered for how team-oriented she was. This was something that carried over into her college years, as she was a member of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. There wasn't a person that DeEbony met that didn't like her. She was so personable.
She put everyone else before herself. And I will always remember that she was an excellent, excellent student, not just a great team player, so to speak, but just a great student and just a fun young lady to be around.
Torianne Sanderlin, or T, was 29 years old and was the cook at the Waffle House. Being a chef wasn't just a job to T, it was a passion. When he wasn't cooking, he was watching Marvel movies. He was a very loving man who was exceptionally close to his family. T graduated from Beach High School in 2007, and his classmates always remembered him as just being a good person. In addition to cooking and watching Marvel movies, T could be found listening to hip-hop music, grilling, or watching football. He enjoyed cheering on his favorite teams, the Arkansas Razorbacks and the New England Patriots. T's funeral was held at the SAG Funeral Home. His father stood at the door of the funeral home and greeted every single person that came to pay their respects. T was buried in a black casket, surrounded by beautiful fresh flowers. T will be missed by all of his friends and family. Joe Perez was the youngest victim to lose his life at 20 years old. He just moved to Nashville to work at his brother's business from the Austin, Texas area. Joe was extremely close to his mom. In fact, his last text message on his phone was sent to his mom. It read, "I will, Mama. I'm fine. I love you so much." When his mom heard about the shooting, she immediately tried to contact Joe. When she couldn't reach him, she feared the worst. His mom pulled up a tracking app on her phone and was able to ping the location of Joe's phone. Her heart dropped when she saw that Joe, or at least his phone, was at the Waffle House where the deadly shooting happened. She immediately called Joe's brother and asked that he go and check on Joe to make sure he was okay. Her whole world came crashing down when Joe's brother called, sobbing and screaming that it's him. It was Joe, and he was gone. Joe was known for being loving and generous. He was also funny and was always taking and sending selfies to his friends and family. Joe's mother still has that text message on her phone, and she will periodically send him text messages, letting him know how much she misses him, even though he will never get the chance to read them.
He was just so full of life. Was like he was like where I wanted to be, caring about family. Like, he was more family oriented. Could never take a smile away from him. Even in bad situations, he was always happy.
Aquila da Silva was 23 years old when he was killed. He was a musician that went by Natrix Dream. He was a student at Middle Tennessee State University. Aquila had 3 sisters and 2 brothers. His family created the Aquila da Silva Foundation, which, according to NatrixDream.life, states the purposes are to, quote, prevent gun violence and other forms of violence and victimization through education and awareness by creating a culture of engaged youth and adults committed to identifying, intervening, and getting help for individuals who might be at risk of hurting themselves or others, with an emphasis on promoting peace and love, as evidenced by the artistic endeavors and memories of Aquila da Silva. Before Aquila lost his life, he had written a song called Prophet. It was only fitting that one of the lines in the song read, "Forget about making a hashtag. Let's throw all the guns in a trash bag." After the shooting, Aquila's mother filed a lawsuit against the Vanderbilt University Medical Center for the wrongful death of Aquila. The lawsuit says that the doctors tried to place a breathing tube into his trachea, but instead placed it in his esophagus, which led to serious injury and untimely death.
Natrix was all about making sure that we put ourselves in a position to win and not wait on anybody else. So that's really another reason why he started shooting videos, because he didn't have time to wait on nobody. He wanted to get it for himself.
The Waffle House restaurant is located in a neighborhood of Nashville called Antioch. Antioch is served by the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. The town has a population of 86,000. One of the most popular areas is the Global Mall at the Crossings. The mall was formerly known as the Hickory Hollow Mall. The Hickory Hollow Mall first opened in 1978, and over time many of the stores went out of business. One of the anchor stores was JCPenney, which also eventually went out of business. Where the store was located, a library and recreation center were constructed in its place. Also built in the mall areas was a regional state-of-the-art ice hockey facility called the Ford Ice Center. Currently, there are 58 tenants and 7 rental spaces. In addition, there are 7 restaurants. Waffle House Incorporated was co-founded by Joe Rogers Sr. and Tom Forkner in 1955. The very first Waffle House opened Labor Day weekend in 1955 in Avondale Estates, Georgia. Today, there are around 2,100 locations in 25 states, which are mostly located in the southern states of the U.S. In the early 1970s, the very first Waffle House located in Avondale Estates, Georgia, was sold and turned into multiple different businesses, including a Chinese restaurant. In 2007, the company was able to repurchase the building and turned it into a Waffle House museum. Each location is open 365 days a year and 24 hours a day. In other words, the restaurants never close. We don't know a lot about Todd or Todd's childhood. What we do know, however, is that he'd been struggling with some sort of mental illness for quite some time. He was raised in Morton, Illinois, which is about 150 miles southwest of Chicago. Morton is a town of about 16,000 people and is known as the pumpkin capital of the world. He grew up in a rural part of the town. Todd's father owns a crane business in Tremont, Illinois, and his grandpa also owns a crane business in Morton. Todd attended a local high school for a few months, and then in the fall of 2006, he was homeschooled. His parents were well-liked and attended church regularly. In all aspects, he seemed to come from a normal, loving family. Everyone knew Todd was a little different, but nothing would make them think, even for a second, he was capable of causing such bloodshed. On May 26, 2016, Todd's father, mother, and grandmother were in the parking lot of a CVS pharmacy when they called police requesting assistance because Todd was acting delusional. When the police arrived, the officers looked up Todd in their law enforcement system and saw that his name was flagged as someone who has been hostile to police in the past and doesn't respect police authority. Police proceeded with caution as they approached Todd and started to ask him questions. Todd claimed that the pop star Taylor Swift hacked his Netflix account. When police questioned further, he stated that Taylor Swift told him to meet her at a local Dairy Queen. When Todd arrived at the Dairy Queen, Taylor was across the street yelling profanities at him before she took off running. Todd followed Taylor but couldn't keep up with her and eventually lost sight of her. At this point, police knew that something was up with Todd and tried to convince him to go to a local hospital and be evaluated. At first, Todd was very resistant to going to the hospital. He finally complied, though, and said he would go. But he wanted it noted in the police's report that he was going, but it was against his will. Todd was taken to the Medical Center of Illinois' mental health unit to be evaluated.
Intelligent, polite, nice person, but also getting further into that, he exhibited signs of paranoia, delusional at times. Wasn't to the point we would have, probably considered bringing him in. He was somewhat serious about his accusations. He said he purchased a $14,000 ring for Taylor Swift and had driven to California to try to meet her.
The next incident of note happened on June 16, 2017. When Todd was living in a small apartment above his father's crane business called J&J Cranes. He came out of the apartment wearing a pink dress, yelling profanities. He then threw a rifle in the trunk of his car and drove to the Tremont Pool, which is a local community swimming pool located in Tremont, Illinois. When Todd arrived at the pool, he proceeded to take off the dress, jumping into the pool. When the lifeguards tried to get Todd to leave the pool area, he yelled profanities and exposed his genitals to the guards. When police arrived, the pool management didn't want to press charges. They just wanted Todd to leave. He never took the gun out of his car, nor did the lifeguards ever fear for their lives. At the time of the incident, his father was out of town and called his daughter to speak with Todd and to secure the firearms. Todd's sister told police that she wasn't afraid of him and that she would talk with him, calm him down, and make sure the firearms were secured. When their dad returned to town, he took the guns away from Todd. About a month later, in July of 2017, Todd was arrested by the United States Secret Service at the White House. He went to Washington, D.C. and entered a restricted area of the White House. When guards told Todd he had to leave, he refused and demanded to have a meeting with the president. Todd said that he was a sovereign citizen and that he had a right to inspect the White House grounds. Ultimately, Todd was arrested for unlawful entry. On July 26, 2017, Todd entered into a deferred prosecution agreement. This meant that Todd would be put on a term of probation, and if he stayed out of trouble and completed all terms of probation, the unlawful entry charge would not be on his public record. On November 17, 2017, Todd successfully completed his probation, and the case was dismissed. On August 24, 2017, the local police, with the help of the FBI, went to Todd's home and confiscated the Kimber pistol, Bushmaster AT-15, which is the weapon that was used in the massacre, a .22 caliber rifle, and a Remington 710. In addition to the guns, Todd's firearms license was revoked. After a short time, the firearms were returned to Todd's father, with the condition that they would be secure, and Todd would not let him have access to them. His father agreed and took the guns home. He had a valid state firearms owner identification card, and the officers didn't believe they had any right to hang on to the weapon any longer. In the fall of 2017, Todd moved to Nashville, Tennessee. Before he moved, his father returned the firearms to him, which, in turn, Todd took with him. On January 22, 2018, he got a job with a local crane company called Clark Crane. The co-workers at the company were concerned about his behavior. He was very paranoid and was always worrying that people were after him. After Todd told various other employees that he felt that people at the company were after him, he was let go. His last day of work was April 3, 2018. It didn't take Todd long to find another job, however, as on April 16, 2018, he started working for another crane company called Craneworks.